the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Now, in a time when beauty, truth, and faith are often sidelined in public life, one initiative is working to bring them back to the center through sacred art. The San Clemente Project is more than just a creative endeavor. It's a cultural mission rooted in the belief that art can evangelize, restore reverence, reawaken, I should say, a sense of the divine in our world. Joining us live from Chicago, Illinois, is the founder of the San Clemente Project, James Perry, to share the vision behind this powerful work. Jim Perry is a retired venture capital and private equity investor who, alongside with his wife Molly, founded the Altum Fund to support Catholic education, charities, and culture. He serves on several Catholic organization boards. Good morning, Jim. Thanks so much for joining us. It is a joy to be with you here on Morning Air and Relevant Radio.
Absolutely. Good morning. So happy to be on Relevant Radio with you this morning.
Jim, let's begin with a big picture. What is the San Clemente Project and what inspired it?
Well, the San Clemente Project is an attempt to restore this ancient Basilica San Clemente, about 300 meters from the Colosseum in Rome, considered one of the most wonderful sites of Catholic history in a city filled with wonderful sites of ancient history. The Basilica was built, we believe, sometime in the late 3rd century above a Roman house that had been left to ruin in the late 300s, a house that we now believe to have belonged at one point to Titus Flavius Clemens, a Roman consul who was executed by the Emperor Domitian sometime around the year 90 for being a so-called an atheist, which was code word for being a Christian. His niece is a famous martyr, Domitilla. Catacombs are devoted to her outside the walls of Rome. And from that site, which was turned over to a Roman general, we believe back in sometime in the 100s and 200s, was the beginning of what later became a house church and then ultimately a basilica that you can now visit from the current church till sometime in the 1200s and then down through underneath the church to the original 4th century basilica, and then even below that into the property, the house of what we now believe to be, again, Titus Clemens' house. You can see an ancient temple to the cult of Mithras that the Roman generals at the time were partial to. It's an incredible walk back into the history of the church, and all throughout are elements of great beauty, great art, frescoes. Some of the oldest frescoes known from back as early as the 8th century have been discovered there. And in the upper basilica, again built around, we think, in the late 1100s, is in the apse, a work of art that is known by experts in historical art as one of the great pieces of stone mosaic, a great stone mosaic, a work of art that depicts the crucifixion of Christ. And from that crucifixion, the great vines of the church extend across the apse and then down from the altar, down across through the alley out to the courtyard of this beautiful basilica. So a basilica that tells the story of our faith, an opportunity to evangelize the faith through great beauty, through the architecture of this place, and tell the story of a church that began with back in the earliest decades of after Christ in Rome, and the stories of martyrs, the stories of great saints whose remains are interred there. St. Clement himself, St. Ignatius of Antioch, St. Cyril, the great saint of the Eastern Church, his remains are also there. So an amazing school of the church that we happened to have stumbled on about 6 or 7 years ago, and then we're drawn in deeper into understanding of this place by the Irish Dominicans who oversee it, and we're asked to consider helping them restore this magnificent place for the benefit of pilgrims will visit it for many, many centuries to come.
Well, Jim, it was truly providential that you stumbled upon this magnificent basilica, because there are so many beautiful churches in Rome, in addition to the four main basilicas of Rome, beginning with St. Peter's. But, for people that have never been inside the Basilica of San Clemente, can you describe what it feels like when you walk in? And I'm looking at some of the photographs. I mean, it is absolutely awe-inspiring.
As you mentioned, it's one of the most visited. We think well over 200,000, perhaps 300,000 pilgrims come to San Clemente a year, and many just don't know. They've been told to come there. You can speak to many experts on Rome, secular experts. If you have one or two or three opportunities to see a place a day in Rome, you must see Basilica San Clemente. Why? Because it tells the story not only of the church, but also of Rome itself. Visitors first proceed through a courtyard, an ancient courtyard, one of the oldest courtyards of its kind in Rome, into the basilica itself. You'll see on the floor an ancient cosmotek sort of marbled tiling that is meant to symbolize the vine, the great tree of the church that extends from, as you look into the church, this ancient altar, and then above the altar, this magnificent stone mosaic that tells, again, the story of Christ, his crucifixion, the great vines that extend from the crucifix itself. And then around the altar itself is an ancient solia, that is a sort of a choir marble, a choir stand that we now know was built in Constantinople sometime during the 400s and transported from Constantinople to the original basilica below the basilica on which the visitor stands. This ancient solia is where today the Irish Dominicans every morning gather to sing plain chant and celebrate the liturgy. On either side of this solia, beneath the 17th century Baroque ceiling, now in a state of great disrepair, there are two beautiful chapels that have frescoes from the 16th century, mostly covered with grime and salt that we're now only beginning to uncover and to show their original beauty. There are two other chapels that are known for artwork that goes back to the 14th century of great renown. Much of this has just been left untouched, for the last 225 years or so. We're now just beginning to remove lead paint that to expose the original plaster. We're beginning to remove the salt and the grime that has accumulated on these ancient frescoes. We expect that within the next year and a half or so, the upper basilica will be brought back to its original magnificence, its original beauty. And then from there, we'll begin the project to help make the excavations below the main basilica become more accessible to and more understandable to pilgrims. We'll do some work to improve the lighting, to begin to help complete the excavation of a baptistry that was discovered astride the main basilica, a 5th century, a basilica that goes back to the early 6th century, perhaps late 5th century. We'll also do some work on making sure that pilgrims, by virtue of audiovisual techniques, better understand these magnificent frescoes that have been discovered down there, better understand the history of the basilica itself. So it's a project that's underway, but probably has a few years to run. We're raising money to complete this project now. We've raised about $8 million of the $20 million we think will be needed to complete the project. So very excited about what we're beginning to uncover and the work that remains ahead of us.
Well, Jim, can you talk about the power of beauty, especially in art and architecture? Obviously, you see the potential of when this basilica is fully restored, just the sheer beauty of it, how it has the potential to touch hearts and to bring people back to their Catholic faith.
Well, there's a great story that one of the Dominican friars tells about giving a tour of the basilica a few years ago and telling the story of the church and pointing out some of the arches that are visible in the 12th century, the upper basilica that extend back to the 4th century, and then escorting the pilgrims down through the excavation. And an older woman kept asking, are these the same stones of the church here down below that now extend up to the Basilica above. She was fixated on this question: how are these stones that go back to the 3rd century, this house church that we now know existed sometime in the 300s, above this Roman consul's home, this consul who was likely martyred for his faith? These stones, are they the same stones that now extend to this upper basilica? And what he realized she was getting at was that this church, this ancient church that is responsible for the faith lives that we have today, are here. You can see it. It resounded so much with her that she kept asking that question. And later, she came back about a year later and told him that she had rediscovered and recommitted to her Catholic faith based on that tour, that going back into time and having a tactile feel for what the church was then and what it is and how it relates to what it is today. That's just one example. There are many, many people that come into St. Clemente. Here they see this crucifixion in the apse, the mosaic, and all the figures, these beautiful figures that adorn this great vine that extends from the base of the crucifix. The only reaction you have is one of great awe. Many of the great commentators have talked about how evangelization is best done beginning with beauty. St. Benedict talked about this at length. And we begin our understanding of the divine through this sense of awe. And beauty has that ability to instill with us this great sense of something far beyond, something that takes us to a different place, And so I think that's the general experience that the pilgrims have when you come through this place and you better understand its history and its great beauty.
Jim, final moments that we have together, can you share perhaps how some of our listeners might be able to get involved to support the San Clemente project?
First of all, if you ever have a pilgrimage to Rome, you must make this one of your the top sites for you to visit for sure. And I encourage everyone to have a look at the website, basilicasanclemente.com, and it's on that website that you can also get access to the website that we've created for the project itself, which will describe in great detail what we're doing at San Clemente, and that's the sanclementeproject.org. You can get a better understanding of what we're attempting to do there. Those are ways of better understanding. And for us, we just want to tell the story. We want to involve as many Catholics in this great project as possible. We look at this as a great patrimony for our faith today. And for us, as philanthropists in the Catholic faith, a way for us to bring other people into this project so that we all can have a part in maintaining this magnificent place for future generations.
Well, Jim, really appreciate you being with us to tell us about the San Clemente project. Many blessings to you and your wife and all the great work that the two of you are doing to promote this initiative.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your listeners today.
Thanks again. James Perry, the founder of the San Clemente Project. This entire episode of Morning Air is on the Relevant Radio app. The Relevant Radio app is completely free and updated daily with fresh articles, podcasts, and prayers. Don't delay. Download the app today, and thanks for listening.